company Hope Lab in the United States, where we made a well-known serious game called Remission for kids with cancer. Then I moved to Holland because there's a lot of opportunities in serious games here in Europe. And I made a game for patient safety there. And in the past few years, I've had my own company. I've been consulting with lots of international companies on how to make serious games. And more recently, I'm hopefully going to be starting soon as professor of serious games at Coventry University. Well, Hope Lab was actually the company of Pam Omidyar, and she's the wife of Pierre Omidyar, who's the founder of eBay. And it had been her dream to make a game for kids with cancer. Her mother had cancer, and she had worked on the cells of kids with cancer and had always hoped she could do something more. And she saw her husband come home from work and get out his frustrations in video games and thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if kids could play a game and learn about cancer and fight their cancer in a video game? And so she called me in as a psychologist, and we started the company, and we came up with Remission. Remission was one of the early games. We completed it in 2005, and we did a big randomized trial on it that was published in Pediatrics that showed that kids who played the game took more of their oral chemotherapy and also their prophylactic antibiotics. And so compliance to these medications has been shown to be related to increased survival to cancer. So we're quite proud of that outcome. And we've also distributed more than 200,000 copies of the game in 81 countries throughout the world, and over 50% of the copies have been distributed outside the United States. So we're really happy with what we've been able to do with that game. I do. It did give me a lot of hope. And I had also gotten inspired from games that had come before me that had been made for diabetes and asthma. So I do believe it can happen. I just think the standards have to be high, and so I'd like to see a lot more of these games come out. And I think they're going to start coming out because the serious games for health are starting to look better and better every year. Yeah, absolutely. So healthcare is changing from acute care and care in the hospital to chronic care, and those people have to learn how to manage their illness outside a medical setting. And so video games are they can be low cost, very accessible for people, and they can engage them in behaviors that can be boring or tedious in a fun way. I found that in Europe they were much more open in the early stages to making games for good. So in the United States, the commercial games are very popular, so it was hard to engage people in making serious games. And also video games in the United States had a bit of a bad reputation because we have guns in the US, and kids get a hold of these guns and they've been playing games and they go in and shoot people at a school. So it was hard for people to imagine that a game could do good. In Europe, not as much access to guns, more gun control, so people aren't so worried about those possibilities, and they play a lot of games, and they can see the good that games can do more, I think. I've actually noticed it differs a little bit by country, and I will say I think the UK is particularly open to it. So when I was in Holland, they're a little bit more risk averse. They want to be more careful. Games, medical care is very serious, and they don't want to take too many risks. And in the UK, I'd give talks, and I kept on getting invited back. They thought it was just a really interesting idea. And I can even see it in the talks here. They've really taken a hold of the concept and run with it really nicely. Well, the SGI already enjoys a really nice international reputation. I'd like to take it a bit further with some really high quality, high impact research, and I'd like to have I'd like for us to have a few serious games projects that are really stand out, that people look at and say like, wow, that's a really good serious game that came out of the SGI. I like a number of those. So I just want to increase the profile and have a higher international impact. They're absolutely important. So artists, when I mean artists, I mean the visual art and also the design. Because what is the magical part of games is the art part. I mean, it's, when you see a beautiful painting, it hits your heart. And you engage with it, it brings you to a different place where you can play around and imagine things, and if the design is good, you feel comfortable interacting with the program. And I feel like those issues are really important for a really high quality game, and they're often overlooked. So I'd like to see more art in serious games.